I initially started with Aya in 2020, and I did not know that ayahuasca was psychedelic. At the time, I was dealing with a severe reaction to a medication that I was taking, that I had been taking to control Crohn's disease. And this reaction just happened out of nowhere. The skin was peeling off of my hands and my feet. I had started developing all of these like muscular aches, and I just went to so many different ologists, neurologists, gastroenterologists, like so many different ologists, and no one could quite figure out what was going on. I was sick for about 9 months, and at this point, like my body had started breaking down, and they started giving me medicine to keep me comfortable. So I was basically waking up every morning waiting to die. I mean, at this point, my body was completely wrapped in bandages. All of my hair had fallen out. I'm in a wheelchair. In 2020, received an email where he was doing an all black ceremony in the wake of everything that was going on with George Floyd. And all the email said was, "Come to heal." And I'm like, at this point, I'm waiting to die, so I'll try this out too, not knowing that this is a psychedelic, not knowing anything about anything. All I saw was healing. After I experienced the death of an ego, after that weekend, everything that was going on with me physically cleared up within a month. I had been sick for a year. Doctors did not know what was wrong with me. And within 1 month, my skin started growing back. I was no longer in a wheelchair. My hair started growing back. Yeah, my body was holding on to so much suppressed emotion, just being a sick child. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 7 years old. I was bullied. I'm the oldest. So, being the oldest comes with its own set of responsibilities and expectations, that you're supposed to live up to by your parents. And so just a lot of that suppression had finally come to a head. It was playing out through all of these physical ailments I was having. And my first session with Aya cured it all within a month.
Hello, Soul Fam. My name is Lelanea, and I am the creator and host of Conversations with Aya. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the indigenous peoples of the Amazon from Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Bolivia, especially the Shipibo Konibo, the Huni Queen, Tucano, Quechua, Ashanika, Quichua, and the many other nations who have safeguarded the sacred traditions of Ayahuasca or Yahe for countless generations. Their songs, their prayers, and their daily lives have carried this medicine forward so that it may reach us today. Yet, as the medicine spreads, we must acknowledge the challenges these communities face. Their forest homes and way of life are under assault from deforestation of big ag and oil companies. Their traditions are often misappropriated or stripped of context due to spiritual tourism. Even the common name of the medicine itself is widely mispronounced in ways that distance it from its roots. These are not small matters. They are part of an ongoing erasure of peoples whose survival is deeply tied to the medicine that we now honor. This podcast exists not to claim the medicine, but to walk humbly with it, remembering always that it comes from living cultures who continue to fight for their land, their language, and their ways. As we share these stories, let us do so with reverence, reciprocity, and respect, always remembering the source, the peoples, the forest, and the songs of the Amazon. And if these stories, the people and the medicine inspire you, then I ask you to become an activist, protecting the rights of the people, culture, and land. This can be done with your vote, continuing curiosity in what your dollar supports, as well as the ways in which you are accessing ayahuasca. Thank you. May you recognize the powerful creator you are, and please enjoy the podcast.
Hi, my name is Megan. I am currently in Culver City, California, and I would like to pay homage to the Tongva people whose land I am sitting on. So my experience with Aya was very different. I initially started with Aya in 2020, and I did not know that ayahuasca was psychedelic. At the time, I was dealing with a severe reaction to a medication that I was taking, that I had been taking to control Crohn's disease. And this reaction just happened out of nowhere. The skin was peeling off of my hands and my feet. I had started developing all of these like muscular aches, and I had just went through so many different ologists, neurologists, gastroenterologists, like so many different ologists, and no one could quite figure out what was going on. At one time, they tried to tell me I had syphilis, which was insane because, like, yeah, because like, where do you get syphilis from, right? So anyway, I was sick for about 9 months, and at this point, like my body had started breaking down, and they started giving me medicine to keep me comfortable. They were like, we can't figure out what's going on with you, and at this point, the only thing we can do is just keep you comfortable. So I was basically waking up every morning waiting to die. I mean, at this point, my body was completely wrapped in bandages. All of my hair had fallen out. I was in a wheelchair. I just was completely, yeah, I was just completely gone. And it was December of 2020. I had been on the shaman's mailing list for quite some time. And I did not know what it was. I just happened to overhear people talking about it in the break room at work. They add me to this mailing list, and I had just been watching the emails, whatever, not really knowing anything. But then in 2020, received an email where he was doing an all black ceremony in the wake of everything that was going on with George Floyd. And all the email said was, come to heal. And I'm like, well, at this point, I'm waiting to die, so I'll try this out too. I mean, I was willing to try anything. I had been to so many doctors and no one knew what was wrong with me. So at the time I was living in Florida, and I told my mom, and I was like, I don't know what this stuff is, but apparently it's supposed to heal you, And my mom was like, well, should you Google it? And I'm like, but it says in the email not to do any research on it or to ruin the experience. Still not knowing that this is a psychedelic, not knowing anything about anything. All I saw was healing. So I get the plane ticket, rent a car, drive up to Big Bear, which was where the ceremony was held. And everybody was like very grounded, I'll say, like very woo woo. And I was like, oh my God, these people are tree huggers. What did I get myself into? I'm in the mountains right now. They are going to kill me. Like, I was just like, I was having an experience. So the first night I'm sitting in this circle and I'm just like, I just got to make it through this weekend, pray that they do not kill me, and I will go home and I will be okay. And the first night I did not feel anything. I sat there, I took the disgusting medicine. I was like, oh my God, it's so awful. And yeah, it was just horrible. And the next day, everyone was sharing their experience. I did not have an experience. I still not knowing that this is a psychedelic because I didn't feel anything. So I'm completely thrown off by what everyone is talking about and why everyone is crying. And, I'm strong woman, we don't shed tears. We don't do it. So I'm like just so uncomfortable by the amount of emotion that is being shown, displayed. And then the second night comes and I'm laying there and I take this medicine again, and I saw an image from my childhood where my first boyfriend that I ever had was breaking up with me. And we had been together for like a year and a half. And this image of just the pain, it took me back immediately to all of the pain that I felt from this boy leaving me. And I immediately jumped up in the middle of ceremony and was like, turn this shit off. I don't know what this is. What's happening? Because I'm like, why am I seeing images from my childhood? Like, why am I feeling this? What? Like, it was so real. It was like I was back there again. And I was just so completely thrown off. During ceremony, you're not supposed to talk. And so I jump up and I mean, like, immediately, I'm like, you have to give me something. I'm pleading with the guardians, like, you all are gonna kill me. Like, I don't know what's going on. Um, and so fast forward, what ended up happening that night was I experienced death of an ego. And it truly felt like I was dying. I was convinced that I was dying. I was seeing all of this hurt and pain, and what really happened is that it started, just the beginning of my healing journey. I didn't start integrating the stuff from ayahuasca until years later, but I recently, as I've come to the end of all of the things that I needed to heal from the past, I had been healing in chronological order the entire time. My very first journey, I started out in my mother's womb. I experienced a lot of the conversations that, my parents had that affected me while my mother was pregnant with me, and since then, every journey I've had ever since has been in chronological order up into recent present day, 2 years ago, where I had to heal from the pain of the last avoidant man that I ever dated. So my experience with Aya, I kinda got off track a little bit, but, I did so after I experienced the death of an ego, after that weekend, this everything that was going on with me physically cleared up within a month. I had been sick for a year. Doctors did not know what was wrong with me, and within 1 month, my skin started growing back. I was no longer in a wheelchair. My hair started growing back. Um, yeah, my body was holding on to so much suppressed emotion, just being a sick child. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 7 years old. I was bullied. I'm the oldest. So, being the oldest comes with its own set of responsibilities and expectations, that you're supposed to live up to by your parents. And so just a lot of that suppression had finally come to a head. It was playing out through all of these physical ailments I was having. And my first session with Aya cured it all within a month. And yeah, I've since then I've journeyed almost 20 times. Now I will tell you that it was really good for, physically clearing up, but I've since come to learn that a lot of my purpose in this world is to help people heal from toxic relationship patterns. And so I would go and do all of this work with Aya, but I would not integrate the things that was coming up. And so I would, show up to ceremony, ooh, trauma, and then go right back to dating the narcissist. So it wasn't until almost 3 years ago where I finally started integrating a lot of the things, a lot of the, suppressed emotions that I, brought up, and it truly just changed my life for the better. So I always speak to how important integration is, in order to really make, um, your experience cohesive with your waking life.
Wow, that is powerful and beautiful, and it speaks to the medicine in such a concrete way. A lot of it is subjective experiences, and it feels mystical and otherworldly, and it's again subjective and an internal experience, and it's hard to put it in words and to convey. And here you have a story that is very physical, where you started to see the physical healing of these wounds and of doing the inner work through your hair returning and your skin coming back and, no longer needing to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I love to speak on my experience because for people who are like me that are somewhat disconnected from their emotions, you can't really see the benefit in all of this emotional healing. It's like, what am I dealing with old emotions for? That's come and gone. But when you have like tangible evidence of the power of this medicine, the tangible evidence of it clearing up autoimmune diseases, just like these physical ailments that we go through and that we think nothing of, we learn to live with, and then ayahuasca shows you that you don't have to live like this. So I really do like to really hone in on that because to me, that's what makes it very real for people who might not be in this world. And now I'm a woo-woo tree hugger,
Mm.
so there's that.
The conversion begins.
The conversion begins.
Um, I love that you brought up integration work. That is a path that I have taken. I'm a transcendental coach and I do integration work for a lot of people. And that is a big part of what has inspired this podcast. Conversations with Aya is not just about these experiences and paying homage to the Indigenous wisdom keepers of this medicine and really honoring those individuals um, and even as far as truly honoring its original name, Hayahuasca, right? It isn't just about illuminating that, but also the illumination of why integration work is so important. And it's a giant pushback against spiritual materialism. And that's what we're seeing happening with this plant. And people, as you've mentioned, will go to ceremony. They will feel the benefits of being in community where um, they are shown and they are given permission to sit in their emotions. They are held, they are witnessed. And that's beautiful. That's a part of the medicine. However, a lot of the integration work that is outside of community, when one is alone, sitting with the experience, sitting with the memories and the visions, that's where a lot of the work is not being done. And so I'm
Exactly.
very curious, what was integration work like for you? What did it look like? What did it consist of? And how did it support you?
So for me, integration really involved just I had a therapist on deck. At one point during my healing journey, I was seeing my therapist twice a week. Just a lot of journaling. I was muting the noise, and I think that that is so important because when we constantly have to have the TV on for background noise, or we're constantly engrossed in these audiobooks and these podcasts, and they're great, like I don't want to take away from, the healing powers of self-help podcasts and self-help books, because I've read a ton of them, but sometimes we can intellectualize the process so much that we forget that we need to actually feel these feelings. And so for me, a lot of the integration was muting the outside noise. I used to have this thing where I would call it processing Mondays, where I would drop my daughter off from school and I would do a microdose and I would just sit here with my journal and my thoughts. And there would be some times where it was, in order to move, I had to get up and just like dance around my house. There were other times I was curled up like a baby on the floor. I just got to a point where I was no longer resisting any emotion that was coming up. I was truly allowing space for me to feel what was what and not sticking to a specific diet of self help or self love. I just did whatever was called for. I now, with all of that being said, I did read a lot of books. I read a lot of books to take in a lot of different perspectives. I did listen to a lot of podcasts, but I wasn't just listening to them. I was then like journaling on the things that this brought up and figuring out how to connect the dots. I was still doing plant medicines. I was sitting with ayahuasca. I also sat with iboga. I sat with other plants as well. So my integration was truly understanding what were the things that caused me to behave in certain ways, and what was it that I was feeling? What was the unmet need that I was trying to meet through that behavior? And then figuring out a way to give myself those needs, that and so that I would no longer behaving from these safety woundings or, whatever. So I think that when it comes to integration, it truly just involves you being deliberate, intentional in your own healing, and recognizing the part that you play in your own suffering.
Yes, what I'm hearing is that you recognize that you are your healer because you can go to all the ayahuasca ceremonies available. You can go and sit in therapy. You can work with a coach. You can go to a doctor. But if there's resistance in you, then you're not participating in your own healing. Ultimately, you are the final gatekeeper of that healing process. And so
Absolutely.
I'm hearing that you surrendered to the process and began participating and pushing away from the resistance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that I speak with my clients about, where when we initially start doing this work, and we're starting to come into these higher levels of consciousness, these higher levels of awareness, the very first thing that we feel is shame. Like we feel so shameful for a lot of the things that we are doing. But shame, just like any other emotion, serves a purpose. And so you have to just really honor, the purposes. Like, think about it. Shame is what stops me from running into the street butt naked, So, I mean, like, shame is purposeful, not so much when we're beating ourselves up. And so it's really not about trying to eradicate these emotions, but more so developing a different relationship with them and compartmentalizing them so that we use them where they're needed and not so much where they're not.
Absolutely. I see this with so many of my clients where they will, be angered or have a rupture in a relationship because they felt shame. And so they misconstrue that with they were being shamed.
Mm,
And you're disempowering yourself when you can't recognize that the feeling of shame that you have because you're in a conversation with somebody and they say, hey, this really hurt me, or you really let me down, I trusted you on this, and you feel shame does not mean that they are shaming you. And that shame is your it's your northern light. It's a compass. It's letting you know you're out of alignment, you're out of integrity with who you are. And this person letting you know how they feel, it is stirring that up to let you know, hey, man, you're off course. And we've demonized these emotions that are so unbelievably powerful to keeping us in alignment with with the authenticity of who we are and who we're meant to be. Just as the ego, we've created a war against the ego.
mhm.
And the ego is very much this beautiful primal part of us that we need. And here I recognize that you were following these intuitive nudges as well as having the support of a psychiatrist to help you recognize these emotions. Because in the beginning you said, you know, I'm a strong woman. We don't feel these emotions, right?
Exactly.
And
Which is
so
actually the
here
polar
you are
opposite of
cracked
strong.
open. Absolutely, absolutely. To not feel them and to push them away is fear. There's nothing strong when we anchor into fear and we allow fear to dictate our relationships with self and with other.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something, that I really lean into, and even with my own child, you know, um, I just recently I was creating a post for one of my socials, and I so my daughter had an issue, where she was with a few of her friends, and she comes home and she tells me, "Mom, I really wanna talk to you," and she turns off the TV. And she's like, the people that I was with, they all had vapes and they all had THC. And we have never kept secrets, and I don't want to start now, even though things are starting to get heavier. And so, of course, we talked through it. What was she feeling, and whatever. And she did not partake, thankfully. But I realized that raising a teenager is can be challenging, and I have a kid that talks to me. And I thought, you know what? I want to, if there's something here that could help other parents to have their children open up, I want to lean into that. And so I asked my daughter, I was like, can you name 7 things that I have done that you think that have contributed to your emotional awareness? And she's like, "Oh, that's easy." And the very first thing that she named was being vulnerable. She's like, "I have always thought that you were superwoman, but when I see you cry or when I see you admit that you don't know or that you're scared," or she's like, "I think that you are so much more powerful because instead of you
Mm,
stuffing it down, you actually stand in it. And it teaches me to be more confident with my own emotions." Yeah, so it's like when she said and not even just with her own emotions, but in her own ability to make decisions. So when we
mm,
think about I it's funny that you brought that point up about, I'm strong, we don't cry because as I was saying that, I was kinda having that, "Oh my god, look how far I've come," because I would never think that that's strong now, I would think that that's the polar opposite. The strength is in standing in the power of these emotions that you hold, not stuffing them down and running from them, so and that's something that I really, just try to drive home, for the younger generation, for my audience, because emotions run our world. Everything that we do, we are either doing it in pursuit of safety or pursuit of happiness. So if you can narrow it down to either of those 2 and you're running from something, you're not standing in your authentic self.
I think what you just said is powerful, and it brings up. So I have another podcast called Integrating Consciousness, where I sit in conversation with a lot of other service providers, whether that is Reiki masters, coaches, therapists, authors that are contributing to the healing of the collective. And I sat with a Brazilian intuitive coach named Melanie Oliver, who was a Reiki master and has numerous other methods under her belt that she utilized with her clients. And she finally had an epiphany that, she would participate in all of this energy healing work, chakra energy, the Reiki work, crystals, all of these things that the everyday person that's not in this world would say, well, that's woo woo. And she said, it's all bullshit. She
Mm.
said, "What's the most powerful that I realized was the only thing that was supporting people in their healing were those who were willing to sit in their emotions and do the emotional work because the real energy work is there. That's where the energy work is processing these emotions, moving through these emotions, getting curious about these emotions, reframing our relationship with these emotions, being able to not resist, but to hold space and have compassion for ourselves as we're working through these emotions. And as we process and we have this really beautiful dance with self, that's where the healing work begins. So, as you're bringing this information up, it really feels in alignment with a lot of what she said.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love to hear of other people who are stepping into their calling and, healing the collective because, um, many people are I I don't wanna say disconnected because I feel like when we use those kind of terms, it kind of has people entering with this sense of defeat, but you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people are not realizing just how powerful our emotions play out through everything, through
Mhm.
everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They dictate our relationship with self, our perspective and how we see the world, the reality that we create in the fourth dimension, this 4D reality where time, space, governs, right? It dictates the reality and the experience and the perspective and the relationships. And it holds it all together. It's the binding glue, right? So when we can really sit in there and do the work, and it is gifts like the medicine of ayahuasca that is supporting us and giving us um, much more leverage, I think, to do this work, as well as the community that is gathered around it.
Totally.
And I'm very curious for you, when you were in that community for the first time, witnessing people really sitting in their emotions, and then that invitation was extended to you, what was that like?
Oh man. Oh, that woman. You know, I feel so thankful for that woman that I was, because she got me up until that point. Um, it was just such a, it was just so different. That just was not my reality. Um, I just wasn't brought up that way. We did not stop and feel, we did not stop and do any of that. And so me sitting there and watching everyone have these experiences where they're crying and they're screaming and they're shaking and they're doing all of these things. I was just so out of touch. I was just like, I am in the wrong place. Like, because the first night I didn't feel anything. And so when we woke up, um, or I shouldn't say wake up because I never went to sleep, but that following day when we were having like community talk and everyone was sharing their experiences, I was just so lost. I was just so uncomfortable. I was so lost. And but there was that part of me that was like, I refuse to have come all the way out here and got nothing from it. Like I got the plane ticket, I got the rental car, like I'm in the middle of the mountains. Like I refuse to leave and walk away with nothing. And then night 2 happened, and just going back to what you mentioned about it shaping our experience, like, for me, the emotion that caused all of those issues was resentment and anger. 2 emotions, I mean, and if you think about how heavy those emotions can be, I mean, I was losing all my skin. I remember there being one point where I was holding a remote control and the edge of it because I had no skin on my hands, and this was the one time I was just trying to let my hands breathe, so I had taken the bandage off, and the edge of a Fire Stick remote cut straight through because there was nothing there. I mean, that is what emotional suppression can cause. So, yeah.
I'd like to go into that more. Like, what was it? Why do you think on your first night of visuals, which was your second night of consuming, why do you think it is that the plant showed you a breakup that occurred with your first boyfriend as a child?
Um, well, I'm a relationship coach, so I help people heal from toxic patterns, toxic cycles in relationships, moving from insecure attachment style to being securely attached. And I think that that image was like a glimpse of me understanding what I incarnated for. Like, I have a karmic debt number of 14, which is the number of relationships. So everything about my natal charts, my life path, everything just points back to me doing the work that I'm doing right now. And I think that that initial scene was like kind of a glimpse in showing me that it was all for something. It was all leading up to this. Because relationships truly have been the theme of my life. You know, I've moved with so much shame and guilt because I just could never get it right. You know, I would attract them, but I could never keep them. I would always call my dad daddy. You know, I don't do relationships. I have a man repellent. You know, like I would say all kind of stuff, you know, to make myself, you know, self-soothing. And so, yeah, I truly think that that first initial, because it was like I was shown that scene, and then it immediately took me into my womb, into the womb of my mother, and I started healing the little things, every little thing that ever hurt my feelings up until present day. But I started in
Mm,
the womb. Even a conversation my parents had while my mother was pregnant with me, and it hurt my mother's feelings, and I had internalized it in her stomach, in her womb, and I had to even
mm.
heal from that, you know? So, yeah, ayahuasca, ooh, Madre's
Do
she's
you remember
good.
the conversation?
Yeah, so I one thing about Aya is that, she kinda gives you the understanding of whatever age you were at the time that it happened, so I didn't quite understand, all I remembered is the feeling, and it was like this feeling, like this drop, and I called my mom and I asked her, I was like, "I felt a drop," you know, like, and I started describing to her, you know, something. And then she told me, she was like, that would have been the day that I told your father that I was pregnant. And she says, she had the clear blue test. And she said, well, Thomas, it's blue. And my father responded, and so am I, as in like he was sad, and it caused my mother, they had been trying to have a baby for weeks. So I really think that, I'm sorry, not weeks, years. So so I really think that you know, my dad has like a very dry sense of humor. You know, I get that from my dad. It's a bit dry and a bit irreverent, really. And so I think he was just like trying to be catchy, trying to be funny, but baby Megan picked up on that emotional drop and internalized it, you know, and it played out through so many different ways. I mean, that was my first bout of anxiety before I was even born. So yeah, I mean, it's so powerful what Aya can really put into perspective for you.
Have you shared this with your father?
He does not remember. I have shared it with him, and he's like, he says, "I just don't get why I would ever say that because, like, we had been trying to have a baby for years." And I'm like, "Daddy, you know how you can say things that are like," and he's like, "Yeah, but would I have said that?" And I'm like, "Well, Daddy, I didn't make this up." You know? And I'm like, "I didn't make this up. Mommy has verified it," you know? So, like, 'cause I speak to both of my parents every day, you know? Like, so I'm very close with both of them. So I'm like, You don't have to remember it. It happened." And yeah, it was like that was my first bout with anxiety, and anxiety is another emotion that runs, I mean, that's probably one of the most common ones that we have a very confusing relationship with, I'll say. You know, I think we all experience anxiety. It just plays out in different ways.
Mm. And as mother was working with you and through you and throughout your numerous different journeys, what have you learned about all these different journeys? Like, how have they all come together for you?
Um, you know, I want to say this because this is the thing that's coming forth the most, is like just understanding how it's not anyone's fault. You know, these cycles that play out through generations are so subtle, you know, they're so subtle. And before I started doing this work, I was unknowingly giving my daughter the same pain that I wasn't even present with. Like, I was not present. Yeah, it was playing out physically, but up until that point, there was truly a separation between my emotional body and my physical body. Like, I had not completely dropped into this world. And so I did not realize how deep of turmoil I really was in. And that was why my physical body looked the way it looked. And so, what mother has really done for me is just like help me to um, just truly embrace, the fact that we're all doing the best that we can, that it's not anyone's fault, and that when we know better, we do better. The very last journey that I had with Aya, she showed me the very first time I was ever forced to be strong. And I was like maybe 2.5, 3 years old. And it was my mother telling me, well, Megan, you just got to be strong. You just got to be strong. And I didn't want to be strong. I was scared. I felt nothing but fear. And I just cried and cried and cried. And I found myself, because we always feel like we have to find someone to point the finger at. And I found myself immediately going back and wanting to, why did she make me be strong? Why did she make me be strong? And then Aya showed me the very first time she was forced to be strong. And I had to feel the same feelings my mother felt when her father forced her. And she was the same age as me. And it's like, you just don't know what you don't know. So I think for me, Aya has truly just brought everything full circle, where, you go into it initially and you're bringing up all of this stuff and you're feeling bad and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened and that happened. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? But as you continue on the journey, it's kind of like, this just is the way it is. It was all written in the stars. This is exactly how it was supposed to play out. And that's what kinda has brought me a lot of peace.
When you're working with Aya or with Mother, who is she to you? Does she have a presence, a feeling, a texture, a smell? Does she look a specific way? Can you describe her for those who have never met her?
So for Aya, she plays a number of different roles for different people. For me, she's kind of the disciplinarian because I'm the hard head kid. Okay, so Aya is very much, she speaks to me in a way of which I kind of find it hard to like put in words, but like prime example is that when I purge, I don't like throwing up. Like I do not like vomiting. And I know that everyone's like, I don't like vomiting, but no, I really like I don't welcome it at all. And so the last journey I had with her, which was maybe 2 months ago, um, I spoke to her and I said, Mom, I don't like the purging. I will do whatever you need. I will yawn, I'll poop, I will stretch, I will dance, I will shout. Just please don't make me throw up. And she's just like, okay. And I went on this journey and it was very beautiful. She was allowing me to release a lot of emotions, but I felt extremely nauseous the entire time. And I was just like, God, but I never threw up. And then I was sitting there and I had been feeling nauseous for so long. And I was like, you didn't tell me by not letting me throw up that I was going to have to sit with this nausea. And I could just hear this little voice saying, well, baby girl, I need space. And there's just not a space to hold all of me here. And I was just like, okay, I'll throw up. And just like that, boom, it all came out. So for me, and this is something, especially for those that have never worked with the medicine, is that we use medicine because it makes it more tolerable for mainstream, but it is a spirit. You know, she is a plant and she has the way that she lives is through us. So you can't necessarily navigate. You don't have full control over your experience, but you can talk to the plant. You know, you can, build this relationship with her, and what works for you because she's just a spirit. Her human experience is lived through us, and we get some say so in how that experience plays out. So I think that that's something that I really, because I spend a lot of time not fully like holding back on the woo woo side of me, like just not willing to get into that at all. And then once I finally just was like, you know what, I'm going to try to talk to her. I'm going to see what happens. It completely changed my experience with her. I no longer looked at her as this like disciplinarian with the ruler, forcing me to look at all these painful experiences. I looked at her as a spirit that wants to work with me so that I can continue the work of the people, and that is for us all to come to a universal consciousness.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is when you refrain from resistance to what you perceived and labeled as woo-woo, it opened a door where you became a co-creator with her and you became more empowered. You stepped into that empowerment
Mhm.
and you started to become your own healer while working and co-creating with her.
Absolutely, because ayahuasca, just like any of the other plants that we use, they are the master teachers. These spirits, they come to us and they teach us. And after we take the medicine, a part of the universal wisdom resides within us for forever. And so whenever I got to a point where I was stopping the resistance to the teachings that she had to offer, it was when I could finally get to a point where not only use it for myself, but then spread the message, spread the word.
Mhm.
Because we're
Yeah, what I'm hearing is
co-creators.
you hit a level of maturity in
Yeah,
your work.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you went in fear, I don't do emotions. I'm a woman, I'm grown, right? And then you start then you're doing the work with her, right? And you're starting to heal and you're seeing it and you're like, "Oh, this shit's good," right?
yeah,
And you show up more, but you're not integrating. And then there's resistance to her and even how you perceive her, there's a resistance. And then there's maturation, this maturity that clicks and this perception shifts.
yeah,
And then you start working with her rather than her disciplining you. Now you're participating.
yeah. I want to really mention, just to add on to what you just mentioned, is that one of the things that I had to really make sense of is that the universal consciousness of which we all come from has provided and supported everything that we see. And the resistance comes from when we think that we know more than it. Like I don't know more about me than my creator because my creator created me. I have been influenced by this 3D reality that has made me believe certain things about myself that aren't necessarily true. And so when you get to a point where you are no longer in a state of resistance and you're just like, you know what? I'm going to trust that you know me better than I know me. That is when I felt like every single door that had been slammed shut was just opening up. I mean, the alignment just comes in such a way. I cleaning my house, I'm wiping my table, and I'm listening to a song, and one of the lyrics of the song at the same time is, and she's wiping her table, like the alignment, the synchronicities that show up. there truly is just so much magic in this universe. And when we allow the spirits of these incredible plants and the state of allowing, then we open ourselves up to all of the magic that is just sitting there waiting for us.
So I'm very curious, and I like to ask everyone I speak to about this.
Mhm.
Is there a part of you, or have you ever considered uh, that Aya is the voice of your subconscious, or is she truly an entity outside of you? What's that relationship look like?
Um, so I believe that we're all connected. Everything is everything. I believe that the subconscious is that universal, that ocean that we have, that quiet ocean within us that is connected to all things. And I think what ayahuasca does is she kind of brings down our guard to allow us to connect to that. So I don't necessarily look at her as a part of me per se, but I am connected to her because we are all things. I think she is her own spirit just because she interacts with different people differently, so it shows that she truly is a separate, for the sake of this conversation, a separate entity, and she works with different people according to where they're at. Like when I first started working with Aya, she was tough. She was not having any of my shit. I was very disconnected. I thought I knew it all and I did not deal with emotions. So I think that's one of the reasons why my very first journey was so intense, because she would not have gotten to me any other way. But now, as I've done this work with her over the years, the relationship is completely different. Now it's more of a co-creation instead of that disciplinarian. I'm going to give you death of an ego to now, what do we need to look at now? So yeah, I look at
And
her as separate.
for the viewer who doesn't know what an ego death is or have experienced it in a medicine setting or out of a medicine setting, what was that like for you? What made you realize, oh, I'm having an egoic death?
Oh my goodness. Well, for one, you truly feel like you are dying. Everything is happening all at once. You're noticing all of these emotions that you thought were to be true. They're coming up. You're realizing that these things actually hurt you. There were a lot of experiences that were coming to my mind at once. It was like a compilation of all things that had hurt my feelings that I refused to deal with. My brother committed suicide, and that was a death that I refused to deal with. And I was the one that had to deliver the news, like, to my parents, and I just refused to deal with that. My grandfather, whom I was very close to, died when I was in my teen years, and I refused to deal with that. There were heartbreaks. I was bullied. Um, I felt I felt like there were some family dynamics where I felt like I was not truly being honored for the individual that I was, that had all of these expectations put on me. And so I had been carrying a lot of that pain. It was like all of these things that I thought that I was okay with came rushing at once. And it was like that overwhelming feeling of just like, oh my God, I've been living a lie. And, like, the next day, I felt completely raw. Like, it felt as if every single bandage that I had had over all of these emotional wounds had been ripped off at once, and I was just sitting there oozing blood, just like, I felt like a total shell. I was actually, sitting with Emily's husband, Yvonne, and I was just with my arms crouched around my legs, just rocking back and forth. Like I truly felt like a mental patient because I was like, what in the hell happened last night? Like, what? we don't realize how much we rely on these emotional bandages that we pick up along the way to get through life, and they had just all been ripped off at once.
Mhm.
And I just yeah, it felt like a physical death.
Mhm.
I mean, I was truly threatening to sue them. I was threatening to sue them because I was like, "You're gonna have death on your hands. My blood is gonna be on your hands. I am dying. Can't you see? I am I mean, I was fighting. Oh, they to this day, we still laugh about my ego death because one of the guardians that was there, he told me that after my experience, they actually had to change the entire way they did everything because they had never had such a visceral reaction the way that I responded. But mine was not just the ego death, it was also because I didn't do
Yeah.
drugs and I'm sitting here looking at shit that like like I'm hallucinating, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like losing my mind on all
Yeah.
fronts. So, yeah, and ego death is a pretty intense experience, but ultimately it is the undoing of everything that you thought to be true for you to rebuild yourself back up with a more steady foundation. For anyone who knows anything about tarot, think about it as like your tower moment multiplied by like
Mhm.
20.
Yeah, the Tower card is a huge card in
Oh,
my natal chart. If you've ever done the Sphinx code, it
um,
combines tarot with your natal chart, and there's the I
oh,
Ching and numerous other uh, modalities that combine with it. And yeah, there's a lot of towers. So I think that was a really good metaphor and comparison. I've gone through a huge
I'm
ego
gonna
death.
have to take note of
Yeah,
that. The Sphinx
I'll
code.
send you a link where you can access it for free. It's on my website for anyone interested. If you go to my website and sign up, you
Awesome.
can get a month for free. So,
Awesome. Thank you
my
for that.
pleasure. So, here you are coming out of this ceremony raw, having an ego death. What did it look like as somebody who was shutting the persona that they had built for so long outside of the medicine, outside of the ceremony? And then how long did it take before you started? Because we always fill it in with another ego, right? But this time we get to choose the ego rather than it being more of a subconscious or inherited or intergenerational or something compounded through our childhood that we didn't feel like we got to participate in its creation. So what did that look like for you to actually create that?
So this was before I started my integration. I went home and it was like this new sense of enlightenment that I had, but I did not have the wherewithal to actually apply it. So I don't want to say I went back home and continued to do the same things, but kind of sorta did. Um, I felt like I was able to meet people on a deeper level
Mm.
after, you know, when you're disconnected from your own emotions, you can't quite understand why other people are feeling things so deeply. So it did help me to become a better parent because at the time my daughter was either 7 or 8, 6. She was very young. And, you know, children, they feel everything. And so I did go home and I felt like there was a lot less of you need to be strong, you know, which is what my mother told me and her father told her. And I'm like, and it stops here. You don't need to be strong. For who? You know? Um, but it wasn't really, I experienced another ego death, a second ego death, because I did not do right by the first one, I suppose. And so, I experienced another, and that was when and that happened a couple years ago, and that was when, I finally was able to build myself back up with, something more fruitful, you know, like better ideologies, and not just building myself up with something more fruitful, but applying it and then spreading the word and showing others how to do the same.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. There's a lot of inner work that has been generated.
Oh my goodness. When I tell you, uh, Leilania, I spent almost 3 years, and I don't want to say silence, but it was deep. I'm just now really starting to resurface,
Mhm.
and like I mean, I have my clients that are coming in, and so that really helps, which didn't really start picking up until earlier this year, until about February. Um, but I've spent years just deep in the solitude of everything.
Mhm.
I traveled the world. I went on my own eat, pray, love journey, went to Bali, went to France, I mean, like, I was everywhere, just like truly trying to heal and romanticize my life because I had all of these great experiences, but I was so disconnected from a lot of
Mhm.
them. I was living, but I wasn't really feeling. And for the first time ever, I was able to really sit and appreciate uh, everything that had happened, my life, everything, even the illnesses. Like, I had so much resentment on why did I have to be sick? Why did I have to be the single mom? It was like I had turned myself into a victim of life. And so a lot of the inner work that I did was necessary just simply because I had been so disconnected for so long from my authentic self.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. That is
Yeah.
powerful. Something that you had mentioned a little earlier that you had a karmic resolve, I believe our karmic number of 14. Can you elaborate
Mhm.
on that a little bit?
Yes. So I'm very deep into the stars and all of that. And so I've had my life path as well as all of my numerology numbers done. And I'm not 100% on all of it. I know my stuff. Um, but what we come into this life with karmic debts from past lives, depending upon the way that we handled our past life. You can figure out yours through the Akashic record, which is basically, a record of everything in this universe has a history, not from just this life, but the lifetimes before it. And so when I went through my numerology, and I had all of my numbers done, one of the things that really stuck out for me was my karmic debt number, and it was a 14. I think there's three different numbers, of which it could be, but 14 is the number for relationships. So in a past life, I overindulged in a lot of things. Um, I overindulged in financially. I did a lot more taking than I did giving. There just wasn't a balance, which also hints to my Libra moon. Libras are the scales; they like balance, and that is my moon. So I think that that might also have something to do that came through from a past life. But, yes, so because of the imbalance that I had in a past life, I came into this world with a karmic debt that needs to be repaid, and mine was through the relationships. And a lot of that played out in my earlier life, because I was big personality. I'm a big talker. As you see, I have no problem talking. I was a I was a big crier as a baby. And my dad still loves to talk. No one could cry as loud and as long as me. And I felt everything so deeply. And coming from a house where emotions just were not at the forefront, there wasn't a lot of space for a kid who felt things as deeply as I did. And so I learned from a very early age that you have to be smaller in order to be normal, you
Mhm.
know? And I just gradually made myself smaller and smaller and smaller. And as I made myself smaller, the resentment was building up even more because I wanted to be me.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
I am big, you know, I am a big personality, and I used to have so much shame around how big I am. Now it's like I don't give a shit. Either we click or we don't, you know? But because I built up so much resentment, it really it harmed a lot of my close relationships. It wasn't just the romantic relationships that I was in where I felt like I had to be smaller and smaller. It was the relationships with my family, you know, it was the relationship with myself. So relationships has really been a thing for me. As close as I am with both of my parents, for a very long time, I felt like the only way to keep those relationships good was by playing a part. And the emotion that I wasn't sitting with was the resentment that was building up from me having to play the part. I had to be the good daughter. I had to be the goody two shoes. I had to be the one that was there for everyone. I had to be the strong daughter. I had to be all of these things that were not authentically Megan. And so a part of my healing journey was learning to be okay with how big, you know, I am. And as I learned to be okay with that, it helped me to better authentically connect with my parents, you know? Like, now we're not negotiating. Like, I went and got my nose pierced, and my mom was like, "Are you sure you want" I was like, "I'm not negotiating
Mhm.
this. I want my nose
Mhm.
pierced." You know, whereas old Megan would have been like, "Oh, mom's not gonna approve of that. I can't do that." You
Mm.
know? So, I mean, as minuscule as that is, that that was who I thought I had to
Yeah.
be. Yeah, so relationships have definitely been, they've been quite interesting for me.
Did Aya ever talk to you about why that resentment and the anger that you were holding on to and the lack of authenticity manifested as Crohn's disease? Did she ever speak to Crohn's in any way?
Not not necessarily. I did ask her to show me how I developed Crohn's disease. And so the first thing that came to mind is that, like any other autoimmune disease, it's like that anxiety that just keeps playing out. And, you know, our vagus nerve sitting right in our gut makes it a prime place for any of those gut issues to play out. But, she did show me an image from childhood, and I don't know if this is gonna be, like, too gross or not, but, I had a childhood friend that came and took a dump in my backyard. Like, just I don't know why she did it, but she thought it was funny. But she showed me the image of this happening, and I remembered it once it was shown to me. I mean, we were, like, maybe 6 or 7 years old, but she dug a hole, took a dump, and Aya showed me how I had internalized that. Like, I had just thought that was the most disgusting thing. I couldn't believe it. I was completely repulsed by this situation. And because I had not dealt with the emotions around that situation, it was kind of like a, "And we're gonna play out here."
Whoa.
And so, yeah, it was like it was a very I don't even know if I'm really putting it into
Yeah.
words in such a great way, but, it was one of those, like, it has to play out some
Yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it played out for me through my
Oh,
bowels,
wow. You judged this little girl for going number 2.
taking a dump
And so
in my backyard.
so
Yeah.
it just manifested. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Ayahuasca is, she's very, very tricky at times, you know? Like, it's so funny, I always laugh at the irony of uh, she just knows how to meet you where you're at and give you the information in a digestible way where, you go into it. And I used to always go into every ceremony. Emily has had to hold my hand, like as I'm taking this medicine. Like, Emily has truly witnessed my growth. Like, she is my big sister. And I would go into it and I would just be so afraid, like so afraid because it's like, what is she going to show me? What am I going to have to deal with?
Mhm.
Oh my God, why does she do this? She hates me. She always does this to me. I'm always being picked on. It's like that little girl that was
Yeah.
bullied would pop right back up where I'm the victim. I'm the victim. Look at
Yeah.
me. And now I've just truly learned. I actually microdosed ayahuasca before our
Oh, wow.
podcast because I'm like, I felt like it was ceremonious to do so. I have a very conscious household, so I keep my conscious plants here, and I have Aya microdoses. Um, but yeah, as I do the medicine more, I've come to find that she will give it to you in a way of which you can tolerate. You think that it's going to be too much, and that's what scares you, but she knows your limitations better than you do. And she will stretch those limitations. And what it does is it just stretches your capacity to handle more. So I love her. I love her because yeah, she saved my life.
Wow, literally.
Literally, she said the doctors when I met Aya, the doctors were giving me medicine to keep me comfortable.
So what did they say when you
Like,
returned and you were healing?
they said it was a miracle.
Did you tell them the miracle was called
I said it
ayahuasca?
I said, well, at this point, I don't wanna say I wasn't convinced, but I did not know I didn't know what I had opened up. Like, I just did not know. Now I tell everyone because I'm balls deep in this stuff. So, like, now I know, but back then I was just like, I don't know what that weekend
Mhm.
was, but I'm cured. Hey. So, yeah, they claimed it was a miracle, and I mean, I had I saw so many doctors. I was on so many medications, and I still cannot get over just how it had stumped everyone. No one knew how to cure me. And I sat with this beautiful plant one weekend, and just like that, yeah,
Oh, girl.
she saved my life.
That's powerful. That is powerful. And so
Yeah.
as we're coming to the end, I love to ask people, is there any universal guidance that she's offered you that maybe is not only privy to you and your circumstance, but is something for everyone? And has she given you any premonitions in your life?
Um, Premonitions as in like the future,
For you, maybe
or
predictions? Did she give you any future
yes.
scenarios?
Yeah. So first I'll do the predictions and then I'll end with the universal knowledge because I think that's like a great way to end it. So yeah, she showed me the very last ceremony I was with her. She showed me standing on a stage in front of thousands of people. They were chanting my name. I had just written a book, and she actually showed me this vision last year, but I was not fully ready to receive it. And Emily was the one that came to me in the middle of a journey, and she's like, Megan, I just saw you on stage. Like, you are going to be an author. You're going to write a book. It's going to be a New York Times bestseller. You're going to be interviewed. She's telling me all this stuff. And I remember looking up because I was like laying on the bed crying. I can't even remember what I had showed me, But I was like laying on the bed crying and I looked up at Emily and I said, "Are you sure that's me?" And Emily just starts laughing. And she's like, "Yeah, that's you, Megan. You're gonna write a book." And I'm like, "Emily, I think you got me confused." Well, I just finished the book and I submitted to literary agents next week. So, yeah, Aya showed me like this beautiful, beautiful future of just me truly just fully stepping in my
Mm,
purpose. And it feels really good. I've been a flight attendant for almost 20 years. And as much as I love my career, I started when I was 18. And as much as I love my career, uh, I just did not feel fulfilled by it. Like, it was exciting, and I got a lot of experience, but I did not feel fulfilled by it, and it was something that I felt like I really couldn't tell anyone because people would be like, "But you're a flight attendant, that's so cool," like, people don't really understand, like, you need to have a purpose, and now I feel like I really have a purpose, and, the universal wisdom that I would just if you take nothing from this conversation, is just stop resisting, to just allow that life is always working for you, like the universe, source, soul, Buddha, God, whomever you want to call them, always working in your favor. So it's not a matter of attracting the thing because you already have it. It's a matter of allowing it. And when we have this guard built up where we're not, we feel like we know more, then we're not in a state of allowing. When we're shaming and guilting ourselves for things that we've done, we're not allowing. And so I think for anyone who plans to do ayahuasca or any other plant medicine, it's that it's very natural to be afraid, you know? But instead of fearing the fear, try to look at it and see what the fear is showing you about you, and just trust that the medicine is going to meet you wherever you're at.
mm, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Your journey is incredible and the wisdom and I
Thank you.
love that you have really integrated and did the work and that you've matured and stepped into your role and your purpose and you're inspired and are just eating everything up that's coming your way. Your skin and hair is beautiful and you're just
Thank
radiant.
you.
And yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm really excited to share your story with everyone. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that there's people like you out there who want to share their experience and who can persevere and move through these challenges despite how hard they are, and then transmute that information into wisdom and medicine for others. So thank you.
Thank you for providing this platform. I feel like when it comes to plant medicine, we are so far ahead of our time, where just people like to look at it like it's drugs, it's this. And so appreciative to people like you who are willing to be the first before the masses catch on, and create this platform where voices like mine can be heard, and show people the other side of this medicine and take the stigma away from it. So grateful for you. I love to see us all just walking in our purpose and doing the good work.
Heck yeah. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to
Yes.
share this space with you.
Same, Lelanea. Thank you.